An old man tattered and overlooked steps into a glittering New York jewelry store. Dismissed by all his trembling hands, hide a secret worth more than diamonds, a promise that could change everything. The morning air in Manhattan was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor's cart. On Fifth Avenue, the Luxe and Lumiere jewelry store gleamed under the pale October sun. Its windows sparkled with gold and gems, each piece priced for the kind of wealth most people only dreamed of. Inside the showroom was a cathedral of elegant marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and soft classical music floating through the air. The staff, dressed in tailored black, stood ready, their eyes scanning for the next customer. They were good at their job, trained to spot a buyer in a glance designer labels. Confident strides, the subtle glow of affluence. But when the heavy glass door swung open with a delicate chime, the man who shuffled in didn't fit the mold. Walter Thompson, 80 years old, moved slowly, his shoulders hunched under a faded flannel shirt. His jeans were worn at the cuffs, and a shapeless knit cap sat low on his silver hair. His shoes, scuffed and dusty, squeaked faintly on the polished floor. The staff exchanged quick looks, amused, dismissive. This guy was lost, they figured, maybe mistaking the store for a pawn shop or a diner. Vanessa Carter, the senior manager, stood behind the reception desk. Her red lipstick perfect her blazer, crisp. She flashed a practiced smile, but her eyes sized Walter up in seconds. No Rolex, no tailored suit, no air of belonging. She leaned forward slightly, her voice smooth, but edged with condescension. "Can I help you, sir?" Walter's hands trembled as he set a worn canvas bag on the counter. His voice was soft, raspy, like it hadn't been used much lately. "Could you hold this for me, please? I'd like to look around." Vanessa's smile tightened, her fingers brushing the bag as if it might stain her manicured nails. "Of course. Take your time." Walter nodded, his eyes already wandering to the display cases. He moved with purpose, each step deliberate despite the weight of age. The staff watched, some hiding smirks. Leela Nguyen, the newest employee, whispered to her coworker, Elliot Rivera, "Think he's lost, poor guy. Looks like he wandered in from a thrift store." Elliot, 28, with warm brown eyes and a quiet demeanor, didn't laugh. He adjusted his tie, glancing at Walter. Something about the old man's focus, his careful study of the jewelry, felt different. Not just curious, determined. Walter circled the showroom, his gaze lingering on a necklace in the center case. Sapphires and diamonds woven together like a piece of the twilight sky. The stones caught the light, blazing with a deep, endless blue. He leaned closer, his breath fogging the glass. "Excuse me," he said, turning to Vanessa, who had followed at a distance. "What's the story behind these stones? They're unlike anything I've seen." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, surprised he'd zeroed in on their most exclusive piece. She stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply. "Those are Burmese sapphires, sir. Exceptionally rare, with a deep, almost celestial glow. The diamonds are flawless cut to enhance the sapphire's fire. It's a one-of-a-kind piece, crafted by our master jeweler in Paris." Walter's eyes stayed on the necklace, unblinking. "How much?" Vanessa hesitated, her smile faltering. She quoted a number, $250,000, an unimaginable sum for most, especially for a man in a threadbare shirt. "It's also on hold for a VIP client," she added quickly. "Perhaps I can show you something more suitable." Walter's face tightened just for a moment. "On hold? But it's got a price tag. Doesn't that mean it's for sale?" Vanessa's tone sharpened, though her smile stayed in place. "Sir, I don't know your name, but this piece is spoken for. And frankly, it's likely out of your price range. We have other options, more affordable." The word hung in the air, heavy with judgment. Walter's shoulders sagged. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. "No, thank you," he mumbled, turning away. He shuffled toward the door, his steps slower now. He didn't notice the canvas bag still sitting on the counter, forgotten in his disappointment. Vanessa waved a hand, and another employee, smirking, nudged the bag under the desk with his foot. A piece of trash in their pristine world. But Elliot saw it. He saw the flicker of sadness in Walter's eyes, the way his hands shook as he reached for the door. Without a word, Elliot grabbed the bag and hurried out, the cold air hitting him as he stepped onto the sidewalk. Sir Yu forgot this. Walter hadn't gotten far, his pace heavy and uneven. He turned, surprise flashing across his weathered face. "Oh, thank you, son," he said, taking the bag. His voice cracked and he looked away, as if ashamed to be seen. Elliot hesitated, then spoke softly. "I'm sorry about how they treated you in there." "They didn't mean—" "They meant it." Walter interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. "Folks like me, we're invisible to people like them." Elliot's chest tightened. He knew that feeling growing up in the Bronx, being sized up by teachers, bosses, strangers, who saw his worn sneakers and assumed he'd amount to nothing. "I'm Elliot," he said, extending a hand. Walter shook it, his grip surprisingly strong. "Walter Thompson." They stood there for a moment, the city buzzing around them, taxis honking, a street musician playing a saxophone, the hum of 1,000 lives. Elliot glanced at the bag, its frayed edges stark against Walter's calloused hands. "That necklace. It means something to you, doesn't it?" Walter's eyes softened, and he let out a long breath. "It's for my Clara. She's gone now, but I promised her." Elliot listened as Walter's story spilled out, slow and halting at first, then stronger, like a river finding its course. Walter and Clara had been married 52 years. They'd lived in a modest house in Brooklyn, filled with laughter and small joys. Clara, a schoolteacher, loved beautiful things, not for their price, but for their stories. She'd stop at Lux and Lumiere's window every Sunday, her eyes lighting up at the sapphire necklace. "I told her I'd get it for her," Walter said, his voice thick, "for our 50th anniversary. But then she got sick. Cancer. We sold the house, moved to a trailer park upstate. Every cent went to her treatments. Didn't matter. She was gone before I could keep my promise." Elliot's throat tightened. "How'd you get the money?" Walter patted the bag. Bottles and cans. Years of collecting, hauling them to recycling centers. Pennies at a time. Thought I had enough, but prices keep climbing. It's never enough. Elliot looked at the old man, his heart heavy. He thought of his own savings, tucked away in a bank account for a down payment on a tiny apartment in Queens. Years of extra shifts, skipped nights out, small sacrifices for a dream that felt just out of reach. "Let me walk you home," he said, almost without thinking. The trailer park was a world away from Manhattan's glitz, a cluster of weathered homes surrounded by patchy grass and sagging fences. The air smelled of damp leaves and motor oil. Walter's trailer was small, its paint peeling, but a faded flower box hung by the door, a remnant of Clara's touch. Inside, Walter offered Elliot a cup of weak coffee. They sat at a wobbly table, and Walter pulled out a photo from a cracked frame. Clara smiling, her eyes bright as the sapphires she'd loved. "She always said that necklace looked like the sky at dusk," Walter said. "Like the world was holding its breath. I just want to keep my promise." Elliot left the trailer with a weight in his chest. All night he lay awake in his cramped Queens apartment, the city's hum filtering through his window. He thought of his mother working double shifts to send him to community college. He thought of Walter's trembling hands, his quiet love. By morning, he'd made up his mind. He went to the bank, withdrew every cent of his savings, $12,000, years of scraping by. It wasn't enough to cover the necklace, but it was something. That evening, he drove back to the trailer park, his heart pounding. Walter answered the door, his eyes widening, as Elliot held out a plain envelope. "Take it," Elliot said. "It's for the necklace. For Clara." Walter shook his head, stepping back. "I can't take your money, son. You've got your own dreams." Elliot pushed the envelope into Walter's hands. "Dreams can wait. Promises like yours, they don't." Tears welled in Walter's eyes, but he didn't speak. He just clutched the envelope, his shoulders shaking. The next day, Walter returned to Lux and Lumiere. He'd ironed his best shirt, a faded button-up, and polished his shoes until they gleamed. The canvas bag hung heavy in his hands. The staff froze when they saw him, their whispers falling silent. Vanessa approached, her smile uncertain. Back again, Sir Walter didn't flinch. "I am here for the sapphire necklace." Vanessa blinked, her composure slipping. "Sir, as I said, it's on hold. I've got the money," Walter cut in, opening the bag. He began counting stack by stack, wrinkled bills and rolls of coins. The showroom was silent, every eye on him. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. Elliot watched from the back, his chest swelling. He caught Lila's eye, and she gave him a small, knowing nod. When Walter finished counting, the total was exact $250,000, a fortune scraped together from bottles, cans, and one young man's sacrifice. Vanessa, flustered, inspected the money, then the necklace. She handed it over in a velvet box, her voice softer now. "Congratulations, Mr. Thompson." Walter didn't linger. He walked out the box, cradled in his hands, his steps lighter than they'd been in years. That evening he drove to the trailer park and knocked on the door of Clara's best friend, Margaret, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She gasped when Walter opened the box, the sapphires glowing under the dim trailer light. "For Clara," he said. "She'd want you to have it, to remember her." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Walter, it's beautiful." He smiled, a spark of his old mischief returning. "And there's something else. I sold an old watch of mine, got enough to pay that young man back. Elliot from the store. He gave me more than money, Margaret. He gave me hope." Elliot was at work the next day, when Walter returned the canvas bag, lighter now. He handed Elliot an envelope with $12,000, every cent of his savings returned. "This is Clara's way of saying thank you," Walter said, winking. "With that work ethic of yours, that apartment won't be a dream much longer." Elliot took the money, his throat tight. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, his eyes stinging. As Walter left, the chime of the door seemed softer, like a sigh of relief. Elliot stood there, the envelope heavy in his hands. He thought of his mother, of Clara, of the way kindness could ripple through a life, changing everything. In a city that never slowed down, where dreams were chased and lost in the same breath, Walter and Elliot had found something rarer than any jewel, a moment of connection, a reminder that even in a world of price tags, the smallest acts could carry the weight of love. And somewhere under the twilight sky, Clara's laughter seemed to linger, carried on the wind.